Hey everyone, Ken here, and welcome to this video. So this weekend was Ludum Dare, and since I basically had nothing to do, I decided to participate. If you didn't know yet, Ludum Dare is a game jam competition in which people make their game in 48 hours, and that is including all the code, art, music, everything. At 12 AM my time, the theme got announced, which was unstable. Obviously, as is tradition, a lot of people were unhappy with the theme.
Disappointed!
But I already had some quite exciting ideas pop up into my head. Considering I often overscope during game jams, I really needed to put some clear boundaries down so that doesn't happen again. In short, my idea was the following. You're in a spaceship which got chased down and blasted to pieces. You decide to shake them off in an asteroid field, and this is the part where you start dodging the asteroids. The spaceship is hard to move since it's blasted to pieces and you can only move it up and down. You need to collect scrap with a grapple hook in order to repair your ship. Repairing should be done through some type of minigame as well. And I wanted to focus a bit more on the category humor, which is one of the categories you get graded on. So I wanted to add a lot of funny dialogue. So the theme Unstable initially comes back from the spaceship being broken and being hard to control. I think I did a good job with this idea to not overscope and kept my idea fairly small. Once I wrote down the idea, I went to bed and wanted to start fresh in the morning. Okay, next up, I really hate doing this, but before I move on, I want to ask you, if you like my content, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking my video, as it helps me out tremendously. I see people complaining all the time about that only 50% of the watchers are subscribed, but come on now, look at this! I wish I had 50%, you know? So please, consider pressing that subscribe button. Now, let's move on. Well, first of all, I obviously wanted to get the mechanics working. So I set up a basic player controller which moves on the x-axis at a constant speed, but where you can control the speed on the y-axis. I added in a spawner which spawns some asteroids, and you obviously don't want to bump into those. And next to that I used the same spawner to spawn in some scrap that you have to collect. There's currently no way to collect the scrap yet, so I made a grapple hook. There's basically a grapple hook on top of your spaceship which rotates around the pivot point following your cursor. This grapple gun shoots out a projectile at a certain speed, and once it reaches a certain range or collides with asteroid or scrap, it returns to the spaceship. Then, to make it look like it's connected to the spaceship, I added a line renderer going from the projectile to the grapple gun. At this point I already had a lot of the game mechanics in, but I'm mainly just missing the minigame to repair your ship once you collect scrap. It had to be something that wasn't too distracting and fairly easy you could do while flying the ship. And I instantly thought of this mechanic in Undertale, which I really liked. Except I didn't want it to be a straight bar. So what's better than a straight bar? That's right, a circle. So I drew out a circle, then a triangle with an angle of 55 degrees and a simple dot. I added the circle as an image with the canvas set to world space so it goes perfectly around the ship. Added a triangle using a mask and the pivot point set to the middle of the ship, and added the dot. Once the minigame starts, the triangle gets set to a random degree so I can define the zone. Using this simple clamp method I found online, I set the degrees to a number between 0 and 360, since Unity goes from -180 to 180, making life more difficult for no reason at all. And then I calculate the zone with the 55 degrees of the triangle, using this clamp method. And then when the player presses the left mouse button, it basically checks the degrees that the red dot is at, and then checks if it's of course in the safe zone. And if it is, the ship gets successfully repaired, and if not, you get a debuff. A debuff, you may ask? Yes, debuffs. I added in 3 simple debuffs when you mess up repairing your ship. Double speed on the x-axis, disabling a grapple, and violently bopping up and down. These debuffs last for 7.5 seconds, and then you go back to normal again. And of course, if you have debuffs, you gotta have buffs as well, so I've added those as well. These buffs are unlocked upon reaching a certain amount of scrap. There are buffs such as making it easier to move up and down, a faster grapple hook, and an easier time playing the minigame. After all of this, I actually planned on doing the dialogue, but since I got really tired of coding for now, I started doing some art. I drew out 5 different stages of the spaceship, different sizes of asteroids, different types of scrap, a cool looking planet for in the background, and some stars of course for in the background too. I also added in some scrap in the background of broken planes and whatever to make it look like this asteroid field is actually dangerous to fly through. Then I added those in, and threw the magic of post-processing on there with some bloom and vignette, and boom, that's so much more pleasing to look at. Okay, for real this time. Time for some dialogue. The ship basically gets controlled by 2 people. A pilot and an engineer, so we need dialogue from 2 people. So I made a system that displays dialogue with the color corresponding to the person, pink for the pilot and blue for the engineer. Next to that I added some type speed for each different dialogue. So let's say a character is panicking, the dialogue of course has to go faster, and there are several triggers for the dialogue, such as collecting scrap, beating the minigame, failing the minigame, and so on. Next to that I put the text right below the ship to make it a bit easier to read, but also distracts you from not crashing into asteroids. A bunch of the dialogue is making each other nervous, and with that I want to make the player nervous too. There's a lot of squabbling going on between the two. Hold on, what does squabble even mean? Squabble is a noisy quarrel about something trivial. Ah. And so this squabbling also supports the theme a bit, as the relation between the two is turning a bit more unstable due to the situation. This is also perfect and where the title of the game came from, which is Space Squabble. Wait, all of that was only day 1? Yep. So I got plenty of rest the next night, and once I woke up I started planning out what else I had to do for the day. The main things I wanted to do was add a bit more dialogue, sounds, polish, a main menu, a short intro scene and a short outro scene. All in all, looked very reasonable and I should be done way before the deadline. So first of all I added some sounds. I added sounds to, for example, collecting scrap, finishing the minigame, failing the minigame, stuff like that. But my personal favorite is the thruster sound, which becomes louder the more you move up or down. I also just had to add some particles for this to make it even better, and add like little bubbles that would become more or less the faster you would go. Then I tried adding a background track to it, but to me it just kinda ruined the atmosphere, so I scrapped that, and I really just enjoyed listening to the thruster sound. And then always when I add sound, I just need to add a volume slider in a pause menu, so that's what I did. Next to sounds, I polished the game a bit more. I added some more particle effects, added some subtle screen shake for when you grapple stuff, or crash into an asteroid of course. Then I drew out a short intro scene, and next to that I made an outro scene as well. I'm not going to show the outro scene in this video. You can play the game and collect 10 scrap if you want to see that. Link for the game is in the description, and you can just play it for free in your browser. So it's just click the link and you can click play. Lastly, I added a main menu explaining a bit on how to play the game, and that was it. I built the game, uploaded it to itch.io, made my itch.io page pretty, and submitted my game 4 hours before the deadline. Finally, I didn't overscope like crazy, and the whole jam was a pleasant experience. And next to that, I'm super satisfied with the result too. It is definitely one of my favorite games that I've made so far. The main takeaway I got from this game jam is that it's super important to set boundaries for the scope of your game. Keep yourself accountable for this and you'll have a pleasant time jamming. Thanks everyone so much for watching. I wish you the best of days and hopefully see you in my next video.